My wife went on a secret trip with her lover and 3 members of her family. When they returned, the house had already been sold. I had packed everything up and moved abroad. Look, I'm not saying I'm a domestic god or anything, but when I commit to making dinner, I go all in. We're talking the full spread here, roasted chicken that's actually moist for once, mashed potatoes whipped to the kind of creamy perfection that would make Gordon Ramsay shed a single tear of approval, green beans that I didn't even burn this time, and a gravy boat that was honestly too fancy for a Tuesday night. I'd even set the table with those cloth napkins Tessa insisted we buy from some overpriced boutique in the city, the ones that cost more than my lunch budget for an entire week. The playlist was queued up, her favorite indie folk garbage that sounds like someone's crying into an acoustic guitar at a farmer's market. And I'd even lit those scented candles she loves, the ones that smell like lavender dreams or unicorn farts, or whatever the label said. I was standing there, surveying my culinary kingdom like some kind of apron-wearing Caesar, when my phone started buzzing on the counter. The screen lit up with Tessa's name, and immediately, my stomach did that thing where it drops about 6 inches. See, my wife doesn't call me during the day. She texts. She sends memes. She forwards me TikToks of cats doing stupid stuff. But calling? That's reserved for emergencies, like when her car won't start or when she needs me to confirm that yes, we do have almond milk at home before she buys more at the store. A phone call from Tessa was like getting a letter from the IRS. Nothing good ever comes from it. I wiped my hands on the kitchen towel, took a breath that I didn't know I was holding, and answered. Hey babe, I said, trying to sound casual, like my blood pressure wasn't currently trying to escape through my ears. Hey, she chirped, way too cheerful for someone who was about to ruin my night. So, I just wanted to give you a heads up. Next week, the whole family's going to Santorini for a little getaway. You know, just a quick vacation to decompress and spend some quality time together. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the bowl of mashed potatoes I'd just lovingly arranged with a little butter well in the center like I was some kind of Food Network contestant. The whole family. Those 2 words echoed in my head like a funeral bell. Because when Tessa said, the whole family, what she really meant was, everyone except you. The guy who's technically part of this family, but might as well be the neighbor's dog for all the inclusion I get. So, your mom, your brother, and your cousin? I asked, already knowing the answer but hoping, praying to whatever deity handles domestic disputes, that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Yeah, exactly, she said, like she was confirming the weather forecast and not the latest episode of Let's Exclude Evan from Everything Important. Then came the pause. You know the one. That pregnant silence that hangs in the air like a fart in an elevator, where you know something worse is coming, but you can't quite brace yourself properly for it. And, yeah, Lucas will be there too. Lucas. Of course Lucas would be there. Lucas, her friend from work. Lucas, the guy who apparently works in marketing but has enough free time to send my wife flowers from the whole team every other month. Lucas, who looks like he stepped out of a cologne commercial and probably irons his gym shorts. Lucas, whose name I've heard more times in the past 6 months than my own. Sure, buddy, you're just colleagues. And I'm the king of England. I said nothing. What was there to say, really? Oh, great. Honey, have fun on your romantic Mediterranean getaway with another man while I sit here like an idiot. Instead, I just stood there, gripping that kitchen towel like it was the only thing tethering me to sanity, and watched a bead of condensation roll down the side of the gravy boat. Metaphorical, if you think about it. Evan, you there? Tessa's voice cut through my mental spiral. Yeah, I'm here, I said, forcing my voice to stay level. Just processing. So, your whole family, plus Lucas, off to Greece. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Very inclusive. Oh, come on. Don't be like that, she said, and I could practically hear her rolling her eyes. You hate long flights anyway, and you know my mom gets stressed about planning these things with too many people. It's just easier this way. Easier. Right. It's easier to exclude your husband from family vacations. It's easier to bring along some random dude from your office instead. It's easier to pretend like I'm some kind of optional accessory to this marriage, like a throw pillow you can just toss aside when it doesn't match the aesthetic. Yeah, no, I get it, I said, my voice dripping with the kind of false cheerfulness that could sweeten coffee. Makes total sense. I mean, why would you want your husband there? taking up valuable space that could go to Lucas? Lucas, who definitely needs a vacation from all that hard marketing work. Sending emails, making PowerPoints, stealing other people's wives. You know, the usual. Evan, don't start, she snapped. Lucas is just a friend. You're being ridiculous. Oh, I'm being ridiculous? I laughed, but it came out bitter. Yeah, sorry. My bad. I'm sure it's totally normal for just friends to vacation together in one of the most romantic destinations on Earth, while the actual husband stays home doing laundry. You're being dramatic. Look, I have to go. We're finalizing the bookings. I just wanted to let you know so you weren't surprised. Consider me informed, I said flatly. Have a great trip. Thanks, she said, apparently missing, or ignoring, the sarcasm completely. I'll send you pictures. She hung up before I could respond, which was probably for the best because what came to mind wasn't exactly dinner table appropriate. I stood there in my kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of my wasted effort, phone still in hand, staring at the contact photo of Tessa smiling at the camera like she didn't just casually nuke our evening from orbit. I set the phone down, wiped my hands on that stupid expensive napkin, and looked around at the spread I'd prepared. The roasted chicken was getting cold. The mashed potatoes were developing that weird skin thing they do when they sit too long. The candles were burning down, wasting their expensive lavender unicorn whatever scent on absolutely nothing. Oh good, I said out loud to my empty kitchen, my voice echoing off the backsplash tiles we'd picked out together at Home Depot. Less laundry for me to do that week. But even as I said it, even as I tried to play it cool like this was just another Tuesday night disappointment in a long string of them, something shifted in my chest. It wasn't anger exactly. It wasn't even hurt anymore, though God knows I'd felt plenty of that over the past few months. No, this was something colder. Something more calculating. This was clarity. I turned off the stove, covered the food with aluminum foil that I knew neither of us would eat later, and blew out the candles. As I watched the smoke curl up from the wicks, I made a decision. A real one. The kind that you can't take back. That would be her last family vacation on my dime. Hell, that would be her last anything on my dime. If Tessa wanted to treat me like I was invisible, like I was some kind of ATM with a pulse who existed solely to fund her lifestyle, while she gallivanted around Europe with Lucas, the marketing marvel, then fine. I could work with that. I could work with that real well, actually. I grabbed my laptop from the living room, opened it on the kitchen counter, right next to the now-cold mashed potatoes, and started Googling. Real estate agents, divorce attorneys, one-way flights to literally anywhere else. As the search results loaded, I smiled for the first time that evening. A real smile, not the fake one I'd been wearing like a mask for months. Because if there's one thing I'd learned in my years of marriage to Tessa and her charming family, it's that when people show you who they really are, you should believe them. And then, if you're smart, you should plan accordingly. By the time she came home that night, smelling like expensive wine from happy hour with her coworkers, including Lucas, I'm sure, I was already 3 steps ahead. She kissed me on the cheek, asked why I looked so cheerful, and I just shrugged. Just thinking about next week, I said honestly, about how much things are going to change. She laughed, completely oblivious, and went upstairs to pack. I went back to my laptop and kept planning, because while they were off posting ocean selfies and pretending life was perfect, I was going to be busy, real busy, making sure they came home to a surprise worth remembering. So here's the thing about being excluded from your own wife's family vacation. It gives you a lot of time to think. Too much time, actually. The kind of time that makes you realize you've been playing the role of background character in your own life story, and honestly, that's just pathetic. They left on a Wednesday morning, and I didn't even bother going to the airport to see them off. Tessa didn't ask me to, which should have hurt, but instead felt like confirmation of everything I already knew. I watched from the bedroom window as the Uber pulled up, saw her mom's oversized luggage that probably weighed more than a small child, watched her brother Kyle load everything into the trunk like he was auditioning for a strongman competition, and then they were gone. Off to Santorini. Off to their perfect little family bubble that apparently had a "No Evans Allowed" sign posted at the entrance. The house felt different immediately. Not empty. I mean, it was literally empty, but that's not what I mean. It felt lighter somehow, like someone had opened all the windows and let out air that had been going stale for months. I walked through the rooms, really looked at them for the first time in forever, and started seeing everything differently. That couch we bought together? I paid for it. The dining table where her family sat every Thanksgiving judging my modest job as a project manager while stuffing their faces with the turkey I'd cooked, my money. The mortgage payment that her mother once called reasonable, while sipping wine that cost more than said payment, all me, baby. Every single month, like clockwork, while Tessa's salary mysteriously evaporated into online shopping and girls' brunches and, apparently, Santorini getaways with Lucas the Wonder Boy. I was sitting on that couch, the one I'd apparently bought for myself without realizing it, when Tony showed up. Tony's been my best friend since college, back when we were both young and stupid instead of just me being stupid about marriage. He's the kind of guy who shows up uninvited with pizza and beer when he senses you're going through something, which is either really intuitive or slightly creepy, but I wasn't about to complain. He knocked twice and walked in. I'd given him a key years ago, back when I still believed in things like trust and friendship and wives who didn't vacation with their work husbands. Bro, Tony announced, dropping 2 large pizzas on my coffee table like he was delivering salvation itself. You look like you've been hit by a truck, backed over for good measure, and then the truck sent you a bill for damages. That's oddly specific, I said, but I grabbed a slice anyway because emotional turmoil doesn't cancel out hunger. If anything, it enhances it. Pepperoni and existential crisis, he said, settling into the recliner that Tessa always complained didn't match the aesthetic. My 2 specialties. So they're really gone. Like gone. Off playing happy family without you. Yup, I said through a mouthful of cheese. Tessa, her mom, Kyle, cousin Rebecca, and of course, Lucas. Can't forget Lucas. Lucas who works in marketing. Lucas who apparently has unlimited vacation days. Lucas who's definitely not sleeping with my wife, but might as well be at this point. Tony stopped mid-bite and gave me that look. You know the one. The look that says, my guy, we need to have a serious conversation, but I'm going to try to make it sound casual so you don't completely lose it. He's practiced that look. We've been friends for 15 years. Bro, you know what this means, right? He said, setting down his pizza like we were about to discuss battle strategy. They didn't forget to invite you. They excluded you. On purpose. With intent. Premeditated exclusion. Thanks, Sherlock, I shot back. Next you'll tell me water is wet and my marriage is a joke. I mean, since you brought it up. Tony, I'm just saying. He held up his hands in mock surrender. Look, man, I've been watching this train wreck in slow motion for months. Her family treats you like you're the help. Tessa acts like you're her roommate, who occasionally she's obligated to have sex with. And this Lucas guy? Come on. Nobody sends that many flowers to a coworker unless they're trying to pollinate something, if you know what I mean. I didn't know what he meant. I'd known for a while, actually, but knowing something and admitting it out loud are 2 very different things. Admitting it makes it real. It makes you the guy whose wife is probably cheating on him, or at least thinking about it, or at the very least enjoying the attention of someone who isn't you. And that guy? That guy's a loser. But sitting there in my living room, eating pizza that I didn't have to share, in a house that was blissfully free of judgment and passive-aggressive comments about my career choices, I realized something. Maybe being that guy was the wake-up call I needed. So what are you gonna do? Tony asked, leaning back with his beer. You gonna cry about it, or you gonna go full movie villain? Because I gotta tell you, I'm here for either option, but the second one sounds way more entertaining. Neither, I said, and I felt this weird calm settle over me. The kind of calm you feel when you finally stop fighting against something and just accept it. I'm gonna go full realtor. Tony blinked. Come again. I'm selling the house, I said, and saying it out loud felt like cracking open a window in a stuffy room. They're gone for 10 days. That's plenty of time. Plenty of time to what? Pack. Find a place? Bro, you can't just. Watch me, I interrupted. This house is in my name. Just mine. We bought it before we got married, and I never added her to the deed because her credit was garbage from some shopping addiction she swore she'd gotten under control. Spoiler alert, she didn't. So legally, this is my house. My equity. My decision. Tony's eyes went wide, and then, God bless him, he started laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but a full body, gasping for air, tears streaming down his face laugh that went on for a solid minute. When he finally caught his breath, he looked at me with something like admiration. Dude, he wheezed. Dude, you're actually gonna do it. You're gonna sell their house out from under them while they're on vacation. That's beautiful. That's art. That's poetry in motion. That's justice, I corrected. They want to act like I don't exist? Fine. I'll show them what me not existing actually looks like. We spent the rest of that night planning. Tony, it turns out, has a sister who's a real estate agent, which felt like fate or karma or maybe just dumb luck, but I wasn't questioning it. He called her right there at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday and explained the situation. Her name was Rosa, and she had this no-nonsense voice that made me feel like I was talking to someone who'd seen every kind of domestic drama and wasn't impressed by any of it. You want to sell your house in 10 days, she said flatly, while your wife is out of the country. That's correct, I replied. And you're the sole owner? No legal complications. Just my name on the deed. I can send you the paperwork. There was a pause, and then I heard her laugh. Okay, I'm in. This is either the most justified thing I've ever helped with or you're a complete psychopath, but either way, it'll be a good story. Send me the details. We'll list it tomorrow. That night, after Tony left with promises to help me pack and document this legendary moment for posterity, I walked through the house again. But this time, I wasn't seeing it as the home I'd built with Tessa. I was seeing it as inventory, as assets, as the physical manifestation of every dollar I'd earned while she complained it wasn't enough, every weekend I'd spent fixing things while she was out with friends, every holiday I'd hosted for her family while they made jokes about my job and my car and my apparently inferior existence. I went upstairs to our bedroom. My bedroom, I corrected myself, and started opening drawers. Tessa had packed for Santorini but left plenty behind, and I was looking for something specific. I found it in her nightstand, under a stack of magazines and some fancy lotion that probably cost more than my gym membership. A box of letters. Not cards. Not notes. Letters. The kind written on actual paper, folded carefully, some with hearts drawn on the envelopes. I opened one, then another, then 5 more. They were all from Lucas. Tessa, you make me feel alive in ways I forgot existed. Can't stop thinking about our lunch yesterday. Your husband doesn't deserve you. That last one made me laugh out loud, a sharp bark of sound in the quiet room. He got one thing right. I didn't deserve this. I deserved better. I put the letters back carefully, exactly as I'd found them. Evidence, I thought. Not that I needed it for anything legal, but it felt good to know I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was just finally paying attention. As I got ready for bed in the house that would soon belong to someone else, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Excited. Tomorrow, I'd meet with Rosa. We'd list the house. We'd start the process of me reclaiming my life from people who treated it like a free vacation rental. And when they came back from Santorini, tan and happy and full of stories about Lucas's charming anecdotes and the beautiful sunsets, they'd come home to absolutely nothing. Well, not nothing. They'd come home to a lesson about consequences. I set my alarm and climbed into bed, smiling in the dark. Checkmate was coming. Morning came faster than I expected, probably because I actually slept well for the first time in months. No Tessa hogging the blankets, no passive-aggressive sighs when I rolled over. Number 3 a.m. scrolling through her phone with the brightness turned down low like I wouldn't notice. Just me, spread out like a starfish in the middle of our California king, dreaming about real estate transactions and freedom. When my alarm went off at 7, I actually felt energized. Like I'd been running on fumes for so long that I'd forgotten what a full tank felt like. Rosa had texted me at 6 in the morning. Apparently real estate agents don't believe in sleeping in, with a message that read, "Can meet at 10. Bring deed, ID, and any inspection reports you have. Let's move fast." I liked her already. She understood urgency. She got that this wasn't just about selling a house. This was about executing a plan with military precision before my window of opportunity slammed shut like a cheap screen door in a hurricane. I spent the morning doing something I probably should have done years ago, going through every corner of this house with fresh eyes. Not sentimental eyes, not, "Oh, remember when we picked out this lamp together," eyes, but cold, calculating. What's mine and what's getting left on the curb eyes. Turned out, almost everything was mine. The furniture? I'd paid for it. The appliances? Me. The art on the walls that Tessa's mother insisted made the place look cultured. My credit card, baby. The only things that were definitively hers were clothes, some jewelry I'd been stupid enough to buy for anniversaries that apparently meant nothing, and a collection of self-help books about finding your authentic self that she'd never actually read. Rosa showed up at exactly 10 a.m. driving a silver BMW that looked like it meant business. She was maybe 50, with short gray hair and glasses that she wore on a chain around her neck like a librarian who moonlighted as an assassin. She walked through my front door, looked around for approximately 15 seconds, and said, "We can get $750 for this, maybe $800 if we stage it right. Market's hot. Location's good. You've maintained it well." "Thanks," I said. "Turns out when you actually give a damn about where you live, it shows." She gave me a look that suggested she'd heard that tone before. The tone of a man who was done being underappreciated in his own home. "Your brother mentioned this is somewhat time-sensitive. My wife's out of the country for 10 days, I explained, sitting down at the kitchen table where Rosa had spread out a folder full of paperwork that looked both official and terrifying. "She doesn't know I'm selling. She's not on the deed. This is all legal, but I'd prefer she found out when she got back rather than via Instagram or a phone call from her nosy mother." Rosa nodded slowly, not even blinking. "Any reason you're selling in such a hurry?" I thought about how to phrase it. I could be diplomatic. I could be vague. I could protect Tessa's reputation even though she'd spent months not protecting our marriage. But sitting there in my kitchen with a woman who was clearly unshockable, I decided honesty was more fun. "Yeah," I said. "The property's haunted." Rosa raised an eyebrow. "By what?" "Bad decisions and my in-laws." She laughed, actually laughed, this sharp bark of amusement that made her seem immediately more human. "Okay, I've sold houses for every reason under the sun. Divorce, debt, death, and now domestic drama. I respect the honesty. Let's get you out of this haunted house." We spent the next hour going through paperwork. I signed things. She explained things. I pretended to understand real estate law while mainly just thinking about how Tessa was probably at some beachside restaurant right now, laughing at Lucas's jokes and not thinking about me at all. Which was fine. Perfect, actually. Made this whole thing easier. "We can list it today," Rosa said, checking her tablet. "I'll have a photographer here tomorrow morning for staging photos. You'll need to keep the place pristine, and I mean pristine, for showings." "Can you do that?" "I'm the only one here," I pointed out. "The only mess will be from me. And trust me, I'm motivated to keep things clean." "Good. We'll do an open house this weekend. I'm betting we'll have offers by Monday, maybe sooner. These starter homes in good neighborhoods go fast, especially when they're priced right and don't require work." By the time Rosa left, I had a listing agreement signed, a for sale sign going up tomorrow, and a plan that was actually in motion. I stood in my driveway, watching her BMW disappear around the corner, and felt something I hadn't felt in years, in control. Like I was the main character in my own story instead of a supporting actor in Tessa's drama. Tony showed up around noon with moving boxes, packing tape, and an enthusiasm that bordered on manic. "Okay," he announced, dropping everything in the middle of my living room. "Operation Divorce and Depart is officially underway. Where do we start?" "Upstairs," I said. "I want all my stuff out of that bedroom. Clothes, personal items, anything that matters. The furniture can stay, staging, you know, but I'm not leaving anything she can claim or destroy in a fit of rage." We headed upstairs, and that's when I made the mistake of opening Tessa's closet. Not because I wanted to go through her stuff. I couldn't care less about her collection of dresses she wore once for Instagram photos, but because I needed to get to the storage boxes on the top shelf where I'd stashed some old college stuff. When I pulled down the first box, something fell with it. A shoebox, wrapped in a decorative scarf, hidden behind winter coats she never wore, because we lived in California and winter meant 60 degrees and partly cloudy. "What's that?" Tony asked, already knowing it was something good because the universe loves dramatic timing. I opened it. More letters from Lucas. But these were different. These were recent. I could tell by the dates scrawled in the corners, by the paper that wasn't yellowed or creased from time. These were from the past 3 months. The past 3 months when Tessa had been working late and stressed about projects and needed space to figure herself out. I read one out loud because apparently I'm a masochist. "Tessa, you make me feel alive in ways I forgot existed. Last night was incredible. I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore." Tony whistled low. "Okay, so we're past emotional affair and straight into regular affair territory. You want to burn these? Frame them? Send them to her mother?" "None of the above," I said, putting them back in the box carefully. "I'm keeping them. Not for revenge. I don't need revenge when I've got a sold house and an exit strategy. But if she tries to come after me for anything, if she tries to paint me as the bad guy, I've got proof. Dated, handwritten proof that she was the one who blew this up. We kept packing. I labeled boxes with more honesty than I probably should have. His clothes, her lies, family photos, trash or recycle. Tony suggested we leave one box labeled Lucas's future problem, filled with all her high-maintenance beauty products and expired vitamins. But I decided against it. I wasn't petty. I was just done. By evening, my entire life, the parts that mattered anyway, was packed into boxes stacked in the garage. The house looked weirdly perfect without my personal touches. Like a model home. Like a stage set for someone else's life. Which, I guess, it was about to be. Tony ordered Chinese food, and we ate it sitting on the floor of my empty bedroom, using moving boxes as tables. You know what's crazy? He said between bites of Kung Pao chicken. You seem happy. Like, actually happy. I haven't seen you this relaxed in over a year. That's because for the first time in over a year, I'm making decisions that are actually mine, I said. Not compromises. Not sacrifices. Not bending myself into shapes to make everyone else comfortable. Just me, choosing what I want. And what do you want? I looked around the empty room. Thought about Tessa on a beach somewhere. Thought about the for sale sign going up tomorrow. Thought about the life I was about to build without asking anyone's permission. I want out, I said simply. And I want her to know that actions have consequences. Amen to that, Tony said, raising his water bottle in a toast. We clinked plastic bottles like they were champagne glasses, and I smiled. Tomorrow, the photographer would come. This weekend, strangers would walk through my house. By next week, I'd have offers. And when Tessa came home, tan and glowing, and probably already planning her next vacation with Lucas, she'd come home to nothing but a forwarding address and the realization that she'd underestimated the wrong guy. The photographer showed up Thursday morning at 8 sharp, which meant I'd been awake since 6 making sure every surface sparkled like we were filming a cleaning product commercial. I'd never realized how much effort went into making a house look unlived in, until I spent 2 hours arranging throw pillows at precise angles and making sure there were exactly 0 personal items visible anywhere. The photographer, a guy named Marcus who wore all black and had the kind of beard that suggested he took his coffee very seriously, walked through each room with his camera like he was documenting a crime scene. Which, in a way, I guess he was. The crime of a failed marriage, Exhibit A through Z. Great bones, Marcus muttered, snapping photos of my kitchen. Good light. You've staged this well. Most people leave out way too much personal crap. Family photos, kids' drawings, refrigerator magnets from their vacation to Branson. Nobody wants to see that. No kids, I said. And the only vacation that matters happened this week, to Santorini, without me. He paused mid-shot and looked at me over his camera. Selling while the spouse is away? Bold move. Respect. By the time he left, I had professional photos that made my house look like it belonged in a magazine spread titled Modern Living for People Who Have Their Lives Together. The irony wasn't lost on me. Rosa called 30 minutes later. Photos look phenomenal, she said, all business. I'm listing it today at $775. We'll see what happens, but I'm betting we get action immediately. This weekend's open house is scheduled for Saturday and Sunday, 1 to 4 both days. Can you be scarce during those times? I can be invisible, I assured her. I've had practice. Perfect. Oh, and Evan, I pulled some comps from the neighborhood. Houses like yours have been going 15 to 20% over asking. You're going to walk away from this very comfortable. Might want to think about where you're going next. Where was I going next? Good question. I'd been so focused on the getting out part that I hadn't fully processed the going to part. But sitting there in my increasingly empty house, I realized I could go anywhere. Literally anywhere. No job tying me down. I could work remotely. No wife to consult. No in-laws to appease. Just me and whatever life I wanted to build next. The possibilities felt dizzying and terrifying and absolutely incredible. The house went live online at noon. By 2 p.m., Rosa had called to say we had 3 showing requests for Friday. By 5 p.m., that number had jumped to 8. By the time I went to bed Thursday night, checking my email obsessively like a teenager waiting for a text back, we had 12 scheduled showings and Rosa was saying things like multiple offer situation and bidding war and other phrases that made me smile so hard my face hurt. Friday was chaos in the best possible way. I'd moved all my packed boxes to a storage unit Tony had helped me rent, so the house was basically a museum of furniture and stage perfection. I spent the day at coffee shops and the library, watching my phone light up with updates from Rosa. First showing loved it. They're consulting with their lender. Second, couple brought their parents. Good sign. Third showing stayed for 40 minutes. They measured the bedrooms. Very interested. By Friday evening, Rosa called with news that made me want to do a victory lap around the block. We have 2 offers already. One at asking, one at $790. Both are pre-approved buyers, minimal contingencies. The $790 couple wants to close in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I repeated, my brain trying to process that timeline. Tessa would be back in 9 days. 3 weeks was tight, but doable. Too fast? Rosa asked. No, I said quickly. Perfect, actually. The faster the better. That's what I like to hear. Let's see what the weekend brings. I have a feeling we're going to get more offers after the open house. This property is checking every box for young professionals and small families. Saturday's open house was scheduled from 1 to 4, which meant I needed to disappear for the afternoon. Tony suggested we go to a bar and day drink while strangers walk through my house, but I opted for something slightly more responsible. Sitting in my car at a park 3 miles away, refreshing my email, and trying not to have a panic attack. Not a panic attack about the house selling. A panic attack about what happened after. About facing Tessa. About the inevitable explosion when she realized what I'd done. About whether I had the spine to actually follow through with this instead of chickening out and somehow trying to explain it away. My phone rang at 2:30. Rosa, you need to get a storage unit for your furniture, she said without preamble. We just had a couple offer $820, all cash, as is, close in 2 weeks. They want everything. The furniture, the window treatments, the staged look. Everything except personal items. They'll pay an extra 10 grand for the furniture package. I sat there in my car, watching kids play on swings, trying to comprehend what I'd just heard. $820,000. Plus 10 for furniture I'd bought mostly out of obligation and guilt. That was over $150,000 in profit from when I'd bought the place 5 years ago. That was freedom money. That was start over wherever I want money. That was never have to explain myself to Tessa's mother again money. Evan, you there? I'm here, I managed. I'm just yes. Yes to all of that. When do I sign? I'll have paperwork ready by Monday. They want a fast close, which means inspections next week, appraisal immediately, and we need to be ready to move. Can you be out in 2 weeks? Could I be out in 2 weeks? I'd been emotionally out of this marriage for months. Physically leaving was just a formality at this point. Absolutely, I said. I can be out in 2 days if needed. Let's plan for 2 weeks to keep everything legal and clean. Congratulations, Evan. You just sold your house for significantly more than asking to buyers who won't haggle or nitpick. That's basically winning the lottery in real estate terms. When we hung up, I sat in that car for another 20 minutes, just processing. I'd done it. In less than a week, I'd gone from excluded husband to liberated ex-homeowner. The house where Tessa's family had spent years making me feel inadequate was about to belong to someone else. The mortgage I'd paid alone, while she spent her salary on God knows what was about to be someone else's problem. The bedroom where I'd found love letters from another man was about to be another couple's sanctuary. And the best part? I'd done it all completely legally. This was my house. My name on the deed. My decision to sell. Tessa had no legal claim to it. No right to stop me. No ground to stand on when she inevitably freaked out. She'd excluded me from her family, from her vacation, from her life. Now I was returning the favor, but with real estate instead of plane tickets. Sunday's open house brought even more offers, but I'd already accepted the cash deal. Rosa said we could have probably gotten $850 if we'd waited, but I didn't want to wait. I wanted this done before Tessa came back. I wanted the papers signed, the deal locked, the point of no return firmly in the rearview mirror. Monday morning, I met Rosa at her office to sign the acceptance. The buyer's agent was there too. A perky woman named Jennifer who kept saying things like, my clients are just thrilled, and they love the energy of the space. I wanted to tell her the energy of the space was actually recent bitterness and justified pettiness, but I just smiled and signed every page she pushed in front of me. When it was done, Rosa shook my hand and said, you know, in 20 years of doing this, I've never seen someone execute a sale this cleanly under these circumstances. You've got everything lined up, legally, financially, logistically. Whatever happened to make you do this? I hope you land on your feet. I will, I assured her. I'm already halfway there. That afternoon, I used Tessa's fancy label maker, the one she'd bought to organize the kitchen pantry and then never actually used, to create a series of labels for the remaining boxes I needed to pack. I stuck them on everything with more honesty than was probably healthy. For the woman who wanted space. Here's all of it. Lucas's future storage problem. Photos from when we pretended to be happy. Tony came over that evening with beer and Chinese food again, and we sat in my nearly empty living room celebrating. Dude, he said, raising his bottle. You sold your house, dodged a bullet disguised as a wife, and you're about to be financially free. That's the trifecta. The trifecta would be seeing her face when she gets back, I said. That's the part I'm both dreading and weirdly looking forward to. You're not going to be here when she gets back though, right? Please tell me you have an exit strategy that doesn't involve confrontation. Oh, I have a strategy, I assured him. By the time she lands, I'll be long gone. New city, new life, new everything. She can deal with the consequences without me there to absorb her drama. We clinked bottles again, and I felt that same calm settle over me. The calm of someone who'd finally stopped letting other people write his story. In 5 days, Tessa would be home. In 2 weeks, I'd be signing final closing papers and collecting a check that represented my ticket out. And somewhere between those two events, she'd realized that treating people like they're disposable comes with a price tag. A price tag of about $830,000, give or take. The thing about executing a perfect exit is that timing is everything. Too early and people catch wind of it, start asking questions, maybe even try to stop you. Too late and you're stuck dealing with the aftermath in person, which defeats the entire purpose of a strategic disappearance. I had exactly 4 days before Tessa touched down at LAX with her family and probably Lucas. All of them tanned and relaxed, and completely unaware that they were about to have the worst homecoming since the Titanic survivors realized their luggage was gone. For days to tie up every loose end, transfer every asset, and vanish like a magic trick performed by a guy who'd finally learned he was worth more than the audience's applause. Tuesday morning started with coffee that tasted better than usual, probably because I was drinking it in a house that would soon be someone else's problem. And a to-do list that was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. First order of business. Open a new bank account at a completely different bank than the one Tessa and I had shared. Not a joint account this time, obviously. Just mine. All mine. I walked into a branch across town where nobody knew me. Sat down with a banker named Patricia who had the kind smile of someone who'd seen every financial disaster known to man, and explained that I needed to move some money around. Divorce? She asked, not unkindly. Getting there, I said. But first, I'm selling a house and need to make sure the proceeds go somewhere secure. Somewhere that only I have access to. Patricia nodded like this was the most normal request she'd heard all week, which either meant she was very professional or I wasn't nearly as original as I thought. She set me up with a new checking account, a savings account, and what she called a high-yield money market account that would apparently make my money work for me while I figured out my next move. I transferred $5,000 from my old account to start, enough to establish the account, but not enough to raise any red flags with Tessa if she happened to check our joint balance before she got back. The closing proceeds will go directly here, I explained, showing her the wiring instructions from Rosa. Should hit in about 2 weeks. And your spouse doesn't know about this account? My spouse doesn't know about a lot of things, I said. Like the fact that the house she's planning to come home to has been sold. Or that I've already got one foot out the door and the other on a plane to anywhere else. Patricia's smile widened just slightly. Well, I hope wherever you land, you find what you're looking for. Peace and quiet, I said. Maybe some decent coffee. Low bar, honestly. Next stop, the storage unit. I'd rented a 10 by 10 space that was currently housing everything I owned that mattered. Clothes, books, my gaming setup that Tessa had always complained made the bedroom look juvenile. Important documents, and a box of photographs from my life before her. Not our life together. Just mine. Pictures from college, from trips with friends, from a version of myself that had somehow gotten lost in the shuffle of trying to be someone Tessa and her family would approve of. I spent an hour organizing everything, making sure I could access what I needed quickly when the time came to actually leave. The rest could stay in storage until I figured out where I was going. Tony met me at the storage facility around noon, holding two enormous coffees and wearing sunglasses that made him look like he was about to star in a buddy cop movie. "Okay, man," he said, handing me a coffee. "We need to talk about your exit strategy. Where are you going? What's the plan? Because you can't just say somewhere else and expect that to work." "Why not?" I asked. "Tessa did that with Santorini. Just announced it and left. I'm doing the same thing, just with more permanent consequences." "Fair point," he conceded. "But seriously, you need a destination. You need a plan. You can't just wander around like a divorced Forrest Gump." I laughed, but he was right. I'd been so focused on the getting out part that the where to part had remained fuzzy. "I've been thinking," I said slowly, testing out the idea as I spoke. "Portugal. Lisbon, maybe. I've always wanted to go there, and everything I've read says it's affordable, beautiful, and full of expats who went there for a fresh start." "Lisbon," Tony repeated. "As in Portugal, Europe, across the ocean Lisbon?" "That's the one. Dude, that's not a fresh start. That's a complete reset. That's like uninstalling the game and starting over with a new character." "Exactly," I said, and saying it out loud made it feel real. Why stay in the same city, the same state, even the same country where I might run into her or her family? Why not go somewhere completely different and build something new? Tony stared at me for a long moment, then broke into a grin. "You know what? Do it. Absolutely do it. You've got the money coming from the house sale. You can work remotely. You're not tied to anything here anymore. Why the hell not?" That afternoon, I went home and bought a one-way ticket to Lisbon. Not for 2 weeks from now when the house closed. Not for next month after I'd prepared or thought it through. For next Tuesday, 5 days from now, the day after Tessa was scheduled to return from Santorini. I'd be wheels up while she was probably still in the Uber from the airport, completely unaware that her entire life was about to implode. The ticket cost more than I'd normally spend. Last-minute international flights aren't exactly budget-friendly, but money wasn't the object anymore. Freedom was. And freedom, I was learning, was priceless. I spent Wednesday tying up loose ends that most people don't think about until they're already gone. I set up mail forwarding to Tony's address. I submitted my resignation to my job, effective immediately, thanks to 2 weeks of unused PTO they owed me. My boss, a guy named Richard who'd never particularly liked me anyway, barely blinked. "Good luck with whatever's next," he said, sounding like he meant good riddance. I didn't care. That job had been fine, adequate, good enough. All the words you use to describe things you settle for instead of things you actually want. I was done settling. I canceled the utilities for the house, scheduled to shut off the day after closing. I transferred the Wi-Fi account to the new owner's name. I even canceled the lawn service that came every other Tuesday, the one Tessa had insisted we needed because the neighbors will judge us if the grass looks bad. The neighbors could judge all they wanted now. Wouldn't be my problem. Thursday was for the small, petty things that brought me an unreasonable amount of joy. I took back every book I'd lent to Tessa's brother Kyle over the years. He'd never read them anyway, just kept them as decoration on a shelf. I removed my name from the emergency contact list at Tessa's doctor's office. I unlinked our Spotify accounts so she'd have to create her own playlists instead of using mine. I even, and this felt particularly satisfying, changed the password on the Netflix account that I paid for and had been sharing with her entire family. Let them figure out their own streaming situation. By Thursday evening, the house was almost completely empty except for the staged furniture that was included in the sale. My car was packed with one suitcase. Everything else was either in storage or didn't matter enough to bring. I did one final walkthrough, saying goodbye to rooms that held memories I was actively trying to forget. The kitchen where I'd gotten that phone call about Santorini. The bedroom where I'd found Lucas's love letters. The living room where I'd spent countless evenings trying to convince myself that this was enough, that I was happy, that marriages were supposed to feel like work. I stopped in front of the thermostat on my way out. Tessa always kept it at 68 degrees, claimed anything warmer made her uncomfortable. I'd spent 3 years freezing in my own house because she preferred it cold. On impulse, I adjusted it down to 62. Let the new owners deal with the utility bill. Let Tessa deal with the metaphor of coming home to a cold, empty house that no longer wanted her there. The security camera I'd installed last year, ostensibly for safety, but really because Tessa's mother had insisted after someone's car got broken into 3 streets over, was still active. I'd already set it up to save footage to my cloud account. When Tessa came home Saturday, I'd be able to watch the whole thing unfold from whatever cafe in Lisbon I was sitting in. Petty? Absolutely. Worth it. We'd see. Friday morning, I woke up in a hotel near the airport. I checked in Thursday night because staying in that house one more second felt unnecessary. The hotel bed was too firm and the pillows were weird, but I slept better than I had in months. No stressed dreams about family dinners where everyone criticized my job. No anxiety about whether Tessa was texting Lucas while I slept. Just me, a mediocre hotel room, and the knowledge that in 4 days, I'd be on a different continent. Tony met me for breakfast at a diner near the hotel. Last meal before the condemned man flees the country, he joked, but his eyes were serious. You sure about this, man? Like really sure? Because once you get on that plane, there's no easy way back. That's the point, I said. I don't want an easy way back. I want to make sure future me can't chicken out and come crawling back to a situation that was slowly killing me. Fair enough, he said, and then handed me an envelope. Little going-away present. Don't open it until you're on the plane. I hugged him in the parking lot. This guy who'd been my friend through college, through my engagement, through my wedding, and now through my escape plan. Thanks for not trying to talk me out of this, I said. Are you kidding? This is the most alive I've seen you in years. I'm not about to ruin that with some speech about marriage being hard work or whatever. Sometimes the hardest work is knowing when to quit. Saturday morning, Tessa's return day, I was at the airport by 6 a.m. even though my flight wasn't until 1 p.m. I went through security, found my gate, and sat there watching the departure board like it might change its mind. My phone had been suspiciously quiet. No calls from Tessa yet, which meant she probably hadn't tried to get into the house. That was coming. At 11 a.m., my phone exploded. 17 missed calls, 23 texts, 3 voicemails, all from Tessa. I listened to the first voicemail on speaker, sitting in an airport terminal surrounded by strangers who had no idea they were witnessing the aftermath of a marriage detonation. Evan, what the hell? The key won't work. Why won't the key work? Call me back right now. I smiled, deleted the voicemail, and turned off my phone. At 1:15 p.m., I was in my seat, economy class because I'm not made of money, heading east toward a life that was entirely mine. The envelope from Tony contained a note. Proud of you for choosing yourself. Don't look back. I didn't plan to. Somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, between my third tiny bottle of airplane wine and my second viewing of some action movie I wasn't really paying attention to, I turned my phone back on. Airplane mode. Obviously, I wasn't about to pay international roaming charges just to read what I knew would be a dumpster fire of messages. The plane's Wi-Fi was working though, weak and spotty, but functional enough for what I needed. I logged into the security camera app, the one still connected to the camera I'd strategically left mounted above the front door, and settled in for what was essentially the best reality TV show I'd never asked for, but absolutely deserved to watch. The timestamp on the saved footage showed Tessa and her entourage arriving at 2:30 p.m., roughly 7 hours ago. I'd already been through security by then, blissfully unaware and stress-free in the terminal, but the camera had caught everything in glorious high definition. I popped in my earbuds. The guy next to me didn't need to hear this, and pressed play with the kind of anticipation usually reserved for season finales and championship games. The footage started with an Uber pulling up to the curb. Out came Tessa first, looking exactly like someone who'd spent 10 days in the Greek islands. Tan, glowing, wearing sunglasses that probably cost more than my flight to Lisbon, dragging a suitcase that was definitely over the weight limit. Then her mother emerged, all flowing scarves and judgment, followed by her brother Kyle hauling bags like he was competing in a strongman competition. Cousin Rebecca popped out next, and finally, because of course, Lucas, wearing linen pants and a shirt that screamed, "I vacation in places you've only seen in magazines." They were laughing about something, completely at ease, absolutely zero awareness that they were about to walk into what I'd privately started calling the reckoning. Tessa fumbled with her keys. Our keys, I corrected myself, except they weren't ours anymore, and approached the front door with the confidence of someone who'd never had to question whether home would still be there when she got back. She inserted the key, turned it. Nothing happened. Her face in that moment. I wished I could screenshot it and frame it. Confusion first, then annoyance. The kind of expression you make when technology doesn't immediately comply with your expectations. She tried again, wiggling the key like maybe the lock was just being temperamental. Still nothing. Because, obviously, the locks had been changed. New owner's request, part of the closing process that Rosa had handled earlier in the week. What the hell? I could see her mouth the words even without audio. The camera had a microphone, but they were far enough away that I only caught fragments. She pulled out her phone, calling me. I knew, because my phone in airplane mode on this flight showed 17 missed calls from around that time. When I didn't answer, because I was busy being in an airport terminal planning my great escape, she tried the key again. Like the third time would somehow be the charm. Her mother stepped forward, saying something I couldn't quite make out, but could absolutely imagine. Probably something about how I was irresponsible, how I'd probably forgotten to tell Tessa I'd changed the locks, how men like me were always causing problems through sheer incompetence. If only she knew. This wasn't incompetence. This was precision execution. Kyle tried his hand at the door, because apparently being male means you're automatically better at keys. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. Lucas hung back, looking uncomfortable, probably realizing that friend from work status didn't include getting involved in domestic lockouts. Rebecca was filming the whole thing on her phone, because of course she was. Everything's content these days. I briefly wondered if I'd end up on her TikTok as crazy ex-husband who changed the locks. Not knowing the full story was so much better than that. Tessa tried calling me again. And again. And again. I watched her pace the driveway, phone pressed to her ear, her free hand gesturing wildly in that way she did when she was frustrated. When I still didn't answer, because I was probably boarding the plane by then, she resorted to texting. The camera angle couldn't show her screen, but I didn't need to see it. I'd already read those texts while sitting at my gate. Where are you? Why won't the key work? This isn't funny. Evan, answer your phone right now. I swear to God if this is some kind of joke. Not a joke, I thought, sipping my terrible airplane wine. Just consequences meeting actions at long last. The best part came next. Her mother, in all her entitled glory, apparently suggested they call a locksmith. I watched Kyle pull out his phone, probably Googling emergency locksmith near me, and getting ready to pay whatever extortionate weekend rate they charged. But before that could happen, a car pulled up. A Lexus SUV. Out stepped a couple in their early 30s, the man holding a folder, both of them looking exactly like people who'd just closed on their first house and were eager to see it. The new owners. I literally laughed out loud on the plane, causing the guy next to me to glance over with concern. I didn't care. This was better than I could have scripted. The timing was perfect. Poetic, even. I watched Tessa's face as the couple approached the house. Her house, in her mind, with keys of their own. I watched the confusion morph into something darker. The man said something, gestured toward the door. The woman smiled, said something else. Tessa's mother stepped forward, probably launching into some explanation about how there'd been a terrible mistake, how they lived here, how they had keys that weren't working. The man shook his head, held up his folder. I knew what was in there. Closing documents, the deed with his name on it, proof of ownership dated 3 days ago. The woman pulled out her phone, probably showing them the listing, the purchase agreement, something official that made it clear this house was no longer Tessa's to enter. I watched Tessa stumble backward. Literally stumbled, like she'd been physically struck. Her mother's mouth opened in what I assumed was outrage, probably demanding to speak to whoever was in charge, to see a manager, to understand how this could possibly have happened. Kyle looked between his sister and the new owners like he was watching a tennis match. Lucas had the good sense to retreat toward the sidewalk, clearly wanting no part of whatever was unfolding. Rebecca, bless her content-hungry heart, was still filming. Tessa made one more call. I watched her dial, watched her face crumble when it went to voicemail. My voicemail, set up before I'd left, with a message I'd recorded specifically for this moment. You've reached Evan. I'm currently unavailable, permanently, in some cases. If this is Tessa, check your email. Everyone else, leave a message I probably won't return. She pulled the phone away from her ear like it had burned her. Then she did check her email, right there on the driveway of the house that used to be hers. I'd sent that email from the airport, time to deliver at 3 p.m., knowing she'd be landing around 2 and would probably be at the house by then. The email was brief, Because I'm not a monster who writes manifestos. The house has been sold. It was in my name only, as you know. The proceeds are secure. Your things are in storage unit 247 on Davidson Street. Key is taped under the front left wheel well of your car. I've paid through the end of next month. After that, it's your responsibility. I'm starting over somewhere you won't find me. I suggest you do the same. P.S. Found the letters from Lucas. All of them. You're welcome to each other. I watched her read it on the camera footage. Watched her face go from confused to shocked to devastated to angry in the span of 30 seconds. Watched her show the phone to her mother, who grabbed it and presumably read the same email. Watched her mother's face turn a shade of red that probably wasn't medically advisable. The new owners, uncomfortable with the drama unfolding on their new property, retreated into the house, their house, and closed the door. Probably to call the police if the crazy people on the driveway didn't leave. Tessa's family stood there for another 10 minutes, a huddle of disbelief and fury, before finally getting back into whatever vehicle they'd called to pick them up. The last shot on the camera was of Tessa, sitting on the curb, head in her hands, while her family loaded back into what looked like her mother's Mercedes. She sat there alone for a solid 5 minutes before finally standing up and walking to the car. I exited the app and sat back in my economy seat, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, satisfied. Not happy in a jumping-for-joy way, but satisfied in a justice served, order restored, balance achieved way. She'd excluded me from her life piece by piece, from family trips, from emotional intimacy, from basic respect and honesty. Now she knew what total exclusion felt like. How it felt to be locked out of something you thought was yours. How it felt to realize someone you'd underestimated had been planning their exit while you were busy planning your next vacation with someone else. My phone, still in airplane mode, showed 43 new messages, 12 voicemails, and 3 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably her family trying to reach me from different phones. I didn't read any of it. Didn't listen to the voicemails. Just looked at the notification count, acknowledged it, and put the phone away. The flight attendant came by with another round of drinks. I ordered a whiskey this time, felt fancy despite being in the cheap seats. The woman across the aisle noticed my smile and returned it, probably assuming I was just happy to be going on vacation. She wasn't wrong. I was going on vacation from my old life. A permanent one. Somewhere below us was the Atlantic Ocean, thousands of miles of water between me and the explosion I'd left behind. Somewhere ahead was Lisbon, a city I'd never been to, full of people who didn't know me and problems that weren't mine. And somewhere back in California was Tessa, standing outside a house she'd thought was home, learning that assumptions have consequences. I raised my plastic cup of whiskey to the window, to the dark ocean below, to the life I was leaving behind. Cheers to closure, I said quietly, and to checking out before checkout time. The guy next to me, who'd been pretending not to notice my entertainment choices, finally spoke up. Rough breakup. Something like that, I said, but it's getting better by the mile. He nodded, understanding in a way that suggested he'd been there too. Then here's to fresh starts and transoceanic flights. We clinked plastic cups over the armrest, two strangers bonded by the universal experience of knowing when to leave. 7 hours until landing. 7 hours until my new life officially began. I could wait. I didn't turn off airplane mode until I was through customs in Lisbon, standing in the baggage claim area at 6 a.m. local time, running on approximately 0 sleep and pure adrenaline. The airport was bright and clean and full of people speaking Portuguese in that beautiful, lilting way that sounds like Spanish had a baby with French, and then that baby took singing lessons. I was exhausted, disoriented, and more awake than I'd been in years. The moment my phone connected to the airport Wi-Fi, it basically had a seizure. Buzz, 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 like I'd won a very angry lottery. 67 text messages, 21 voicemails, 43 missed calls. And, this was the kicker, 114 notifications from the family group chat that I'd forgotten I was even part of. The family group chat. Tessa's family group chat. The one they'd created for coordinating holidays and birthdays, and apparently now for coordinating their collective outrage at my audacity to sell my own house. I found a bench near the baggage carousel, set my carry-on down, bought the cheapest international data plan my carrier offered, and opened the group chat with the kind of morbid curiosity usually reserved for true crime documentaries. The last message I'd sent in there had been like 8 months ago, something innocuous about bringing wine to Thanksgiving. Nobody had responded. Now, now I had more attention than I'd ever wanted. The messages started from Saturday afternoon, right around the time they would have discovered the house was sold. Tessa's mom, whose contact name in my phone was still Barbara, even though Tessa had tried multiple times to get me to change it to Mom, had fired the opening shot. Evan, call me right now. This is unacceptable. Followed immediately by Kyle. Dude, what the actual hell? You sold the house. Tessa's crying. Mom's losing it. Where are you? Then cousin Rebecca, jumping in with the kind of commentary that made me remember why I'd avoided her at every family gathering. This is literally insane. Who does this? Who sells a house while their wife is on vacation? Psychopath behavior TBH. Lucas. Because of course Lucas was in the family group chat now. Apparently he'd been added while they were in Santorini, had the audacity to write. Hey man, I think we should all just calm down and talk about this like adults. I'm sure there's an explanation. The explanation, Lucas my boy, is that you've been sending love letters to my wife and I decided I'd rather cash out than continue funding this circus. But I didn't write that. Not yet. I kept scrolling, watching the messages pile up like a car crash in slow motion. Barbara again, you are a thief. That house was Tessa's home. We will be calling our lawyer. Call your lawyer, I thought, taking a screenshot for my own records. The house was in my name only. Your lawyer will bill you $500 an hour to tell you that you have no case. Kyle, bro, you can't just ignore us. This is serious. Tessa is devastated. Rebecca, I hope you're happy with yourself. You've destroyed this family. That one made me laugh out loud, earning a concerned look from a Portuguese grandmother walking past with what looked like 3 generations of family in tow. Destroyed the family? I'd barely been considered part of the family. You can't destroy something you were never really included in to begin with. Tessa's messages were fewer but more desperate. Please just tell me this is a mistake. Please tell me you didn't actually sell our house without telling me. Evan, please. We can fix this. Just call me. Our house. She kept saying our house. Funny how it became our house the moment it was sold, but it had always been your responsibility when the mortgage was due or something broke or the property taxes came around. I sat there on that bench in Lisbon Airport, thousands of miles and an entire ocean away from these people, and felt absolutely nothing. No guilt, no regret, no urge to defend myself or explain or engage with the chaos I'd created. Just a calm, clear certainty that I'd made the right choice. They wanted me to feel bad. They expected me to feel bad. The old Evan, the one who'd spent years trying to please people who couldn't be pleased, probably would have felt bad. But new Evan, the one who'd just crossed an ocean to start over, he was doing just fine. I typed out a response. Not long, not emotional, just facts. The house was in my name only. I had every legal right to sell it. Tessa's belongings are in storage, fully paid through next month. I'm starting over. I suggest you all do the same. I sent it and immediately muted the group chat before they could respond. My phone buzzed approximately 15 seconds later with what I assumed was a tidal wave of outrage, but I didn't look, didn't care. Had a city to explore and a life to start. Tony had texted me privately, separate from the group chat chaos. Dude, I'm getting calls from her family. Her MOM called me. Barbara called me asking where you are. I told her you'd gone to find yourself in the wilderness. She asked which wilderness. I said the metaphorical kind. She hung up on me. This is the best day ever. I typed back. You're a true friend. Currently in Lisbon. The coffee is incredible and nobody here is related to my ex-wife. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Living your best life while they implode. Proud of you, man. Send pics of Portuguese pastries. I grabbed my suitcase from the carousel, miraculous that it had actually arrived with me, and headed for the exit. I'd booked an Airbnb in the Alfama district, the old neighborhood with the narrow streets and the tile facades, and the kind of charm you can't fake. The place was cheap by American standards, expensive by my current unemployment standards, but I had house sale money coming and 2 months of peace and quiet to figure out my next move. The Uber driver spoke exactly 3 words of English, hello, Alfama, and beautiful, which suited me perfectly. We drove through Lisbon in the early morning light, past buildings painted in yellows and pinks and blues, past old ladies hanging laundry from wrought iron balconies, past cafes just opening up with small tables spilling onto cobblestone sidewalks. It looked like a movie set. It looked like somewhere you'd escape to in a novel. It looked like the exact opposite of the beige suburban prison I'd been living in. My phone kept buzzing. I kept ignoring it. At some point, Tessa called 18 times in a row, which was honestly impressive from a persistent standpoint. Each call went to voicemail. Each voicemail went unlistened to. I'd set up a new voicemail greeting from the airport. You've reached Evan. If this is about the house, sold. If this is about reconciliation, not interested. If this is about anything else, probably still not interested, but leave a message and we'll see. Barbara left a voicemail anyway. I could see the duration, 4 minutes and 37 seconds. That was a lot of words to say. I'm angry and entitled, and how dare you. Delete. Kyle left one too. 1 minute, 12 seconds. Probably something about brotherhood and loyalty and how I'd betrayed the family. The family that had never actually treated me like family. Delete. Even Lucas left one, which took some nerve. 34 seconds. I almost listened to that one out of sheer curiosity. What could he possibly have to say to me? But decided against it. Whatever words Lucas had for me, I didn't need them. He could keep his marketing wisdom and his love letters and his future problems when Tessa inevitably did to him what she'd done to me. The Airbnb was a third-floor walk-up in a building that had to be at least 200 years old. The host, a kind-faced woman named Maria who spoke English with a thick accent, showed me around the tiny apartment. 1 bedroom, a kitchen the size of a closet, a bathroom with a shower that looked like it had been retrofitted sometime in the 70s. The windows opened onto a view of terracotta roofs cascading down toward the Tagus River, and in the distance, I could see a massive suspension bridge that looked like Lisbon's answer to the Golden Gate. You are here for vacation? Maria asked as she handed me the keys. Something like that, I said. More like a permanent vacation from my old life. She smiled like she understood exactly what I meant. Lisbon is good for new beginnings, she said. Many people come here to start again. The city welcomes you. After she left, I stood at the window with a coffee I'd grabbed from a cafe downstairs, a Galeo, the barista had called it, basically a latte, but somehow better, and watched the city wake up. Somewhere, 7 time zones behind me, it was midnight in California. Tessa was probably still awake, still trying to process what had happened, still calling my phone and getting nothing but voicemail. Her family was probably gathered somewhere, strategizing, calling lawyers who would tell them they had no case, drafting angry texts they thought would make me feel guilty. But I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. My phone buzzed again. Another text in the group chat that I'd muted, but could still see the notification count for. 147 messages now. They were really going for it. Part of me, a very small, petty part that I wasn't particularly proud of, but also wasn't going to apologize for, wanted to scroll through and read every single outraged message. Watch them spiral. Watch them blame me. Watch them try to make sense of how their plans had been disrupted by someone they'd consistently underestimated. But the larger part of me, the part that was standing in a Lisbon apartment with better coffee than I'd had in months and a view that didn't include judgmental in-laws, decided it didn't matter. They could send 1,000 messages. They could call 100 times. They could draft legal threats and moral arguments and sob stories about poor Tessa and her devastated family. None of it would change the fact that I was here and they were there, and for the first time in years, I was living a life that was entirely, completely, unapologetically mine. I opened the group chat one more time. Typed one final message. Hope you all had a great trip to Santorini. I took one too. Turns out it's permanent. The house. Sold. My patience. Exhausted. My new life? Just beginning. Have a nice life. P.S. I'll be blocking this number after sending this, so feel free to respond, but know that I'll never see it. Goodbye. I hit send, blocked every number in that group chat, blocked Tessa's number for good measure, and then blocked Barbara's, Kyle's, Rebecca's, and yes, even Lucas's number, even though he'd never called me directly, because why take chances? Then I turned off my phone completely, plugged it into the charger, and left it on the nightstand. I had a city to explore, a language to stumble through, and a life to build from scratch. The chaos back home could continue without me. In fact, I preferred it that way. They could have their group chat drama. I'd take the pastiest de nata and the Atlantic breeze and the sweet, sweet sound of silence. Fair trade, if you asked me. The first week in Lisbon passed in a blur of cobblestone streets, espresso shots that could wake the dead, and the kind of deep, uninterrupted sleep that only comes when you're not dreading tomorrow. I'd wake up each morning to sunlight streaming through those old windows, the sound of trams rattling by on the street below, and the absolute absence of anyone asking me to do anything I didn't want to do. No requests to pick up groceries on the way home. No passive-aggressive comments about how the dishes weren't loaded correctly. No family dinners where I played the role of wallet with a pulse. Just me, a city that didn't know my history, and all the time in the world to figure out what came next. I fell into a routine faster than I expected. Morning coffee at the cafe 2 doors down. The owner, an older guy named Joao who'd apparently decided I was his new project, would greet me with "Bom dia, amigo," and have my galeo ready before I even ordered. I'd sit at one of the tiny tables outside, watch the neighborhood wake up, and work through freelance projects on my laptop. Turns out, project management skills translate pretty well to remote consulting work, and American companies were more than happy to pay me in dollars while I lived on euros. The exchange rate alone felt like a race. By the second week, I'd started Portuguese lessons with a tutor named Catarina who had the patience of a saint and only laughed at my pronunciation about 60% of the time. Liberdade, she'd say slowly, watching me butcher it for the 15th time. Liberdade. It means freedom. Yeah, I'd said. I'm familiar with the concept. Just getting reacquainted with it after a long absence. She'd given me this look, the kind that said she'd heard that story before, or one close enough to it. Lisbon, I was learning, was full of people who'd come here running from something or towards something or both at once. Expats from all over the world, drawn by affordable rent and good weather, and the kind of cultural anonymity that lets you reinvent yourself without anyone asking too many questions. I fit right in. The housing money hit my account during week 3. $830,000, minus closing costs and Rose's commission, left me with just over $750,000. I stared at my phone screen in that tiny Airbnb kitchen, looking at a number I'd never seen in my account before. Generational wealth, if I was smart about it. Stupid money, if I wasn't. Either way, it was mine. All mine. Not ours. Not the family's. Just mine, earned by years of paying a mortgage solo, and then having the guts to cash out when everyone expected me to just keep taking it. I transferred a chunk into investments, boring index funds, the kind that wouldn't make me rich overnight, but wouldn't bankrupt me either. Put another chunk into a high-yield savings account as an emergency fund. Kept enough liquid to live comfortably for a year, maybe 2, while I figured out the next move. It felt responsible and adult and nothing like the guy who used to let his wife's family quietly drain his bank account through small loans that never got paid back and temporary help that somehow became permanent. Tony video called me on a Saturday morning, his time, which meant late afternoon for me. I was sitting at a rooftop bar in Barro Alto, drinking wine that cost €3 a glass and tasted better than the $30 bottles Tessa used to insist on, watching the sunset paint the city orange and pink. "Dude," Tony said when his face appeared on screen, "you look 10 years younger. What are they putting in the water over there?" "Botox. The tears of your enemies. It's called not being married to someone who hates me," I said. "Highly recommend it. Very rejuvenating." "Well, it's working. You look like you've been on vacation for a month." Meanwhile, back here in California, your ex-wife is having what I can only describe as a prolonged meltdown. She showed up at my apartment. I nearly spit out my wine. She what? Showed up, rang the doorbell, full makeup, like she was trying to look put together, but you could tell she'd been crying. Asked if I knew where you were. Asked if you told me anything. Asked if this was all some kind of plan we'd cooked up together. What did you tell her? I told her you'd gone to find yourself and that I was sworn to secrecy about the location. She asked if you were in the country. I said, technically yes. Earth is a country if you think about it philosophically. She did not appreciate my humor. I laughed so hard the couple at the next table looked over with concern. "You're a menace." What did she say? She tried the whole sob story thing. How she didn't understand why you were being so cruel. How she just wanted to talk. How maybe we could work things out if you'd just come back. I asked her how Santorini was. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. Then she left. Did she say anything about Lucas? Tony's face got serious. Actually, yeah. Apparently, Lucas dumped her. Like, immediately after the house situation happened. Guess he wasn't interested in a girlfriend with no assets and a storage unit full of problems. Real stand-up guy, that one. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, not even the smug vindication I'd expected. Just a kind of distant acknowledgement that karma had handled that situation without me needing to be involved. How's her family taking all this? Barbara's been calling mutual friends, trying to turn people against you. Calling you manipulative, saying you trapped Tessa in the marriage and then abandoned her. Most people aren't buying it. Word got around about the Santorini trip, about Lucas, about how they excluded you from basically everything. Public opinion is not on her side. And Kyle posted something on Facebook about fake people and betrayal, but didn't name you specifically. Pretty sure everyone knew what it was about, though. Got like 40 likes from people who don't know the full story. Your actual friends commented asking for context. He deleted the post. I shook my head, watching the sun dip lower toward the horizon. It all seemed so far away. Not just geographically, but emotionally. Like it had happened to a different person in a different life. You know what's weird? I don't care. I thought I'd care more. I thought I'd want to defend myself or set the record straight or whatever. But I just don't. That's called healing, my man. That's what it looks like when you remove toxic people from your life and give yourself permission to move on. We talked for another 30 minutes about his job, about a girl he'd started seeing, about the Portuguese phrases I was learning and mangling. Before we hung up, he said, "I'm proud of you, you know. Not everyone has the guts to blow up their life and start over. Most people just stay miserable because it's familiar. Thanks, Tony. For everything. For the pizza. For helping me pack. For lying to my ex-wife about my whereabouts. Anytime, brother. Now go eat some of those egg tart things and live your best life." After he hung up, I ordered another glass of wine and a plate of gambas alla Gillo, garlic shrimp that arrived sizzling in oil and tasted like I'd been missing out on real food for years. Maybe I had been. Hard to enjoy food when you're constantly stressed about mortgages and marriages and meeting expectations you never agreed to in the first place. A woman at the bar, Australian accent, traveling solo, photographer by trade, struck up a conversation about the best spots to catch sunrise over the city. We talked for an hour, easy and uncomplicated, about travel and work and life choices. She didn't ask if I was married. I didn't bring it up. When she left, she said, "Hope you find whatever you're looking for here." I think I already did, I said, and meant it. By week 4, I'd found an apartment to rent long-term. A one-bedroom in Graca, another old neighborhood, with a balcony overlooking the river and rent that was less than half what my California mortgage had been. The landlord, a retired professor who'd lived in the building for 40 years, barely asked any questions. Just, "Can you pay 3 months up front?" And, "You seem like quiet tenant, yes?" Both answers were yes. He handed me keys that probably dated back to before I was born and said, "Welcome home. Welcome home." 2 words I'd been saying to Tessa for years every time she walked through the door, rarely hearing them back. Now a stranger in a foreign country was offering them freely, no strings attached, no expectations beyond paying rent on time and not throwing parties that disturb the neighbors. I moved in with my single suitcase and started acquiring things slowly. A coffee maker, some plates and silverware, a small desk for working. Nothing expensive, nothing flashy, just functional pieces for a life I was building one decision at a time. The apartment felt more like home in 3 days than my house in California had felt in 3 years. I took walks every evening through different neighborhoods, learning the rhythms of the city. The way the bakeries smelled like butter and vanilla in the mornings. The way the trams groaned uphill, packed with tourists and locals alike. The way people greeted each other on the street. Strangers, but friendly, acknowledging each other's existence without judgment or agenda. It was such a contrast to California's suburbia, where everyone hid behind their fences and the only conversations were about property values and whose lawn looked best. One night, sitting on my new balcony with a beer and a book I'd picked up from an English bookstore, my phone buzzed with an email. Not from the family. I'd filtered all those addresses to spam. This was from Rosa, the realtor. "Hope you're doing well wherever you landed. Just wanted to let you know, the sale finalized completely, all paperwork done. New owners love the place. Also, I've had 3 other clients ask me about revenge sales after hearing your story. Your situation boosted my business. People love a good took my life back narrative. Hope you're living your best one. Rosa." I wrote back, currently on a balcony in Lisbon, drinking cheap beer that tastes expensive, in an apartment that costs less than my car insurance used to. Living the dream. Feel free to use my story as a marketing tool. Title suggestion: Sell your house, save your life. Evan. She replied with a laughing emoji, and that's going on a billboard. As the city lights blinked on across the hillside below me, I thought about where I'd been a month ago, packing boxes in secret, planning an escape like some kind of domestic spy. Wondering if I had the courage to actually go through with it, or if I'd chicken out at the last minute and return to the slow suffocation of a marriage that had died years before I'd acknowledged it. But I'd done it. I'd actually done it. Sold the house. Left the country. Built something new from nothing but determination and a bank account that finally reflected my worth. My phone stayed quiet. No angry calls. No demanding texts. Just peaceful silence. Somewhere in California, my old life was continuing without me. Tessa was probably figuring out how to rebuild. Her family was probably still outraged. Lucas was probably dating someone new, someone with more assets and fewer complications. And here in Lisbon, I was doing what I should have done years ago, choosing myself. Liberdade. I said out loud to the city, my pronunciation still terrible but improving. Freedom. Tasted better than any revenge ever could. Tony became my eyes and ears back in California, feeding me updates that were equal parts devastating and hilarious. Apparently, Lucas dumped Tessa 2 weeks after the house fiasco, once he realized his marketing queen came with a storage unit instead of a mortgage-free lifestyle. Turns out love letters are cheap when you're not the one paying bills. Dude, it gets better, Tony told me during one of our video calls. Mutual friends are making memes about you. Someone posted a photo with the caption, "When your wife goes on vacation but forgets her husband owns the deed," with your face photoshopped onto some guy holding a sold sign. You're like, internet famous in our friend group. Barbara called me heartless in a Facebook post that got exactly 12 likes, mostly from relatives who didn't know the full story. Kyle commented on it calling me evil, which would have stung more if he hadn't borrowed $5,000 from me 2 years ago that he never paid back. I call it efficient asset reallocation. Even Rosa texted me, "Your story boosted my business." 3 clients specifically asked for the realtor who handled that revenge sale. People love a good comeback story. Tell them it's not revenge, I replied. It's just consequences with better timing. The best part? Someone sent me a screenshot of Rebecca's TikTok where she tried to paint me as the villain. The comments were brutal. So he sold his house that he paid for? The audacity and main character energy, honestly. Even the internet strangers got it. Meanwhile, I was in Lisbon eating grilled sardines and learning that saudade means a melancholic longing for something, which felt appropriate since the only thing I longed for was the version of myself I'd finally become. Tessa sent one final email. "Can we talk?" I replied, "Sure, but you'll have to book a flight. I'm busy living." No response. Probably couldn't afford the ticket. 6 months in Lisbon changed everything. I bought a seaside apartment in Cascais, small, but the deed had exactly one name on it, mine. Every morning, I'd drink coffee on the terrace watching surfers catch waves, thinking about how Tessa used to complain that oceanfront property was wasted on people who didn't appreciate it. Turns out, I appreciated it just fine when it wasn't attached to her opinions. Tony visited for 2 weeks, and we toasted with Portuguese wine that cost less than Starbucks back home. "To your ex-wife," he said, grinning. "Thanks for taking that trip. It paid for this one." I clinked his glass. Best investment she ever made in our relationship, leaving. One evening, another email from Tessa appeared. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for maybe 3 seconds before replying. "Already did. You went to Santorini, I went to Portugal. We both found what we were looking for. Don't contact me again." Blocked. Deleted. Done. Now when people ask why I'm single, I tell them the truth. I was married once, but I sold the problem along with the house. And when loneliness creeps in, which it does, sometimes, I remind myself, being alone beats being lonely in a crowded marriage. Liberdade tastes sweeter every single day.